Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Macbeth, one of Shakespeare's most famous tragedies, and it's often called the cursed play. And the reason we call it the cursed play, we'll get into that in just a little bit, but part of it has to do with uh, the bad superstition of saying the name Macbeth in a theater. So for that reason, it's often called the Scottish play. The other reason it's called the Scottish play is because it's set in Scotland. It's Shakespeare's only play that is set there. And it's also called the Scottish play because it's in honor of the new king, James I. Queen Elizabeth, who ruled for the first half of Shakespeare's career, died, and she was never married and had no kids. So her cousin, James, the King of Scotland, inherited the throne. Shakespeare writes this for his new boss, and since it's considered bad luck to say Macbeth, we call it the Scottish play. This is a play that also contains many supernatural elements, witches, black magic, fate, prophecy. Appealed to King James because James was fascinated in witchcraft. And last year you may have read a play called The Crucible, set in Salem in the 1690s. America got interested in witches about 80 years later. King James was very fascinated by them. So what is Macbeth? What is the story? Well, it's a tragedy. That's a type of play that ends with the death or suffering of our main characters. And it tells the story of a man urged by his wife and foretold by prophecy who commits regicide. That's sort of a fancy looking word. If we see that C-I-D-E, side, we might think of things like homicide or suicide, pesticide, genocide. So we know it means to murder. Regicide, you might think about that word regal, right? Royalty. So it is somebody who commits regicide. They kill a king. And it is based on a real story. Shakespeare used a history book as his inspiration. There really was a guy named Macbeth who lived around the 1040s who becomes King of Scotland. If we talk about the theme, or one of the big subject matters, this is a play about ambition. Let's meet some of our characters. First, we have Duncan. Duncan is the King of Scotland when the play opens up. He's portrayed as a kind and trusting older man who's betrayed by someone he trusts, Macbeth. This murder sets off the play's conflict. Now, this is not a mystery, so I'm not spoiling anything. If you watch a play called Julius Caesar, you know that Julius Caesar dies. If you see a movie on Abraham Lincoln, you know that Abraham Lincoln will die. So that is not a mystery here. But we're going to see Duncan and his good nature juxtaposed with Macbeth and his sense of guilt. The king has two sons, Malcolm and Donalbain. Malcolm is going to be named the Prince of Cumberland, the next in line to be king. But we're going to see that after that, they're going to run away. So we've got two characters, Malcolm and Donalbain, the two sons of the king. Now we have our main character, Macbeth. He's a general in Duncan's army, and he has a position of royalty. He is considered the Thane of Glamis. Now, a thane, this is an unusual word, but it's a good one to know for this play. A thane is a feudal lord, a powerful leader. And one day he will receive a prophecy from a group of witches that tell him that he will one day become king. We're going to see that these prophecies get into his head and they feed his vaulting ambition. And this will then become the tragic nature of the play. His ambition will corrupt his principles. Macbeth is married. His wife is known as Lady Macbeth. That is all the name we have for her, Lady Macbeth. She's also ambitious, and she has a kind of hunger or thirst for power and wealth and status. And she is going to urge her husband on. We're going to pay attention to some images here and the idea that eventually we'll see her sleepwalking. Macbeth has a best friend, and his name is Banquo. That's an unusual name, Banquo. And he's also a soldier and a trusted general in Duncan's army. He's also there when Macbeth gets his prophecies. But He is not tempted by them. He's suspicious and skeptical. He is what we call a foil to Macbeth. We can see a contrast between them. While Macbeth is urged on, it is Banquo who is tempered by his morality and his intelligence. Macduff is the Thane of Fife. So Thane, we know, again, is an important, powerful position. Fife is a area or region of Scotland. And he will come to challenge Macbeth. He has the role of the Avenger. We might know those from the movies. They are figures who stand in for justice. They try to uphold the law and punish the evil. He will remain faithful to Scotland. And our last really important set of characters are the witches, 3 weird sisters who can see the future, and it's their predictions that will kickstart the events of the play. Now, one character is given a name. Her name is Hecate, who is a Greek goddess of sorcery and black magic. She'll show up in some versions of the play as sort of the queen of the witches, but we'll see. So some of the themes we're going to be paying attention to as we get into this, as I said before, is ambition and guilt. And what the play really is sort of trying to show us is the corrupting power of unchecked ambition and the devastation which follows when ambition oversteps moral boundaries. So ambition we often think of as a good thing. You want to be successful. You want to work hard. You want to make lots of money. You want to get ahead in the world. That's ambition, and that sort of can motivate us to do good things. But if we're ambitious so much so that we lose our sense of right and wrong, where we go over and break our own conscience, when we go against our own morality, that becomes the problem. We value success and wealth and power more than anything else, more than being a good person, more than being a loyal citizen. That is where the trouble begins. We're also going to ask questions about fate and free will. Some of us believe that everything happens for a reason, that it's part of a plan, a divine plan, that we're where we're meant to be. And other people maybe think the world is wide open. We have free will. We can determine our own fate and destiny. We can make of ourselves whatever we want. And sometimes we can believe in both of those things at the same time. So this play is going to examine a little bit of that. What things are maybe fated or destined to happen, and what things we're responsible for in our own lives. Lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about appearance and reality. Some people appear to be our friends. They smile and they say nice things to us and they flatter us. But in reality, they're talking behind our backs, and they're really our most dangerous enemies. Or some things can appear difficult or hard, but in doing them, we get great rewards. Some things might seem easy and pleasurable and fun, but really they're dangerous and leading us astray. So the difference between the way things appear and the way they really are. Okay, so in the beginning of this, I said that actors don't always call this play Macbeth. They call it the Scottish play. And the reason for that is there is a long history of bad luck happening. And the origins of this are, again, this is superstition and maybe not real. But according to superstition, Shakespeare got a few of the lines from an actual coven of witches. And when they saw the play or heard about it, they were offended and put a curse on it. Another tradition tells that the original prop master couldn't find a suitable pot for a cauldron, and he stole one from a real coven, who then cursed the play in revenge. Now, this is theater superstition, not classroom and not your home. There's no bad luck associated with us. But with actors on stage, there is. And here's some of the history of that. If you remember that all the parts in Shakespeare plays were originally played by boys or men, female parts were played by younger men. Well, the first boy actor designated to play Lady Macbeth had a fever and died. Later, when this play was performed in Amsterdam in 1672, an actor playing Macbeth used a real dagger instead of a fake prop stage one, and then killed Duncan in full view of the entire audience. They were watching and thought, wow, that is really realistic. Wow, those screams sound real. That blood really looks real. And that's because it was. Somebody was actually murdered on stage. Later, Sarah Siddons, who played Lady Macbeth, was nearly ravaged by an audience. Later, Sybil Thorndike was almost strangled by an actor. Diana Windward, who plays Lady Macbeth, who sleepwalks, was sleepwalking on stage and fell off and fell 15 feet and was very severely injured. Later in 1849, in New York City, a riot broke out around the performance of Macbeth, and 31 people were trampled to death. A couple of others here, we'll just hop through these pretty quickly. 1937, Laurence Olivier was playing Macbeth. A 25-pound stage crashed within an inch of him. The sword, which broke on stage, flew out into the audience and hit a man who suffered a heart attack. I'm going to drop down a little bit later. Charlton Heston, in an outdoor production in Bermuda, suffered severe burns in his groin and leg area when he wore tights that were accidentally soaked in kerosene. Kerosene is a petroleum byproduct, and it sort of burns the skin and sometimes can even peel it off. So when he went to take the tights off, he was peeling his own skin off with his groin and legs. And then finally, Macbeth was Abraham Lincoln's favorite play. And according to legend, he was reading it the night before he died. He did not see Macbeth. He was watching a play called Our American Cousin when he was shot and killed by John Wilkes Booth. But that day, he was reading Macbeth, particularly the part about an assassination. All right. I have a little video here that I'll attach separately called The Curse of Macbeth, which you can watch if you're interested in more of these superstitions. And remember, you're going to be safe. Nothing bad ever happens. But that's the play we're going to be getting into. All right. And now we have the background. We know our characters, and hopefully you'll enjoy getting into it tomorrow.